Okay. We are married. Good morning, Mr. President, Madam First Lady, senators, congressmen, members of our armed forces, esteemed foreign representatives and guests. Roma and I are so grateful to be here this year. We're used to sitting out there and have been for many years and love this prayer breakfast. We're especially grateful this year to be speaking at President Obama's last prayer breakfast. It's such an honor. We're also really, really glad to be here to share with you a little of our story of our immigrant blue-collar roots of coming to America.
Yes, it's a great blessing also for us to be here as a married couple and to get to do this together. As we've heard, we're the first husband and wife team ever to speak at the National Prayer Breakfast. Mark and I have been working together side by side for years. And most couples we know can't even do yard work together without arguing. And you're together every day producing the Bible and AD and the soon-to-be-released epic feature film, Ben-Hur. And I just have to acknowledge Mr. Morgan Freeman, who is here today, who is one of the stars of Ben-Hur. Spending so much time together as a husband and wife is a blessing and a challenge. And perhaps the real miracle is that we're still speaking to each other. As business partners, we have different styles and approaches. I might tap gently on a door, and my husband might kick the door down. And both can be effective, and like all partnerships, we've learned to work as a team. And there is an art, of course, to public speaking. It should feel like a graceful dance. And speaking today, we will try not to step on each other's toes. I'm reminded of some of the great dancers from the past, like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and they moved so well together. And remember that Ginger did everything Fred did, but she did it backwards and in high heels. Of course, yeah, for the girls. Of course, as you may be able to tell from our accents, I am Irish, my husband is English, but we don't hold that against him.
Okay, I admit it. I was born in England, but I'm very lucky now, as is Roma, to be an American citizen, so we can officially celebrate 4th of July. I do know I'm also lucky. I'm the only person in the room who is married to an actual angel. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Yes, I have been touched by an angel. Well, we are married.
I was born and raised in Derry City, Northern Ireland, near the Bogside section. And Derry is the second city of the north, and as you all know, it was home to a great deal of violence and unrest, particularly in the 1970s and 80s. And our city was divided by a river which flowed through the middle, segregating the communities. And Catholics lived on one side, Protestants lived on the other, and never the twain did meet. And we hardly ever crossed the river to the other side. And those were scary and often dangerous times when shootings and bombings became a way of life. When I was just 10 years of age, my mother died, and I remember going to visit her grave when a fierce gun battle broke out in the cemetery. And I narrowly missed being shot. The bullet hole singed the coat I was wearing and missed my head by inches. Surely I must have had an angel watching over me that day. And through my teenage years, I can remember sitting in my little bedroom on the street where we lived, looking out at the rain and listening over and over to one of the only cassettes that I owned. It was Simon and Garfunkel's Greatest Hits. And I loved the lyrics, for they created a poetic world where you could hear the sounds of silence, and it seemed possible that you could really build a bridge over troubled waters. And the lyrics painted a picture for me, a picture of America, and a seed was planted. The American dream represented freedom and opportunity, and there, as a young Irish teenager, an American dream was born in my heart. Like so many immigrants before us, this great country has provided us with the opportunities to make our dreams reality.
Yeah, we both came seeking that same American dream. 30 years ago, I left the British Army Parachute Regiment and I moved to Los Angeles with 0 skills. But I did need a job and a place to live. And I had a friend from home who lived in Beverly Hills and worked as a chauffeur for a rich family. He suggested a chauffeur might be a good job, that at least I could drive a car. But there were no chauffeur jobs available. But there was a job advertised. It sounded great. It was a live-in position in Beverly Hills, got paid $125 a week, and the job did come with a room, a car, and even cable TV. The trouble was there were 2 words right at the front of the job description, which made no sense for a guy from the parachute regiment. Those 2 words were child care. My friend Nick told me it was a waste of time even going to the interview, but I remember him saying, Mark, come on, how are you going to go from being a commando yesterday to Mary Poppins tomorrow, really? But I knew I was desperate, so I showed up that night at 624 North Beverly Drive in Beverly Hills for a job interview. It was crazy. Keep in mind, I was 22 years of age and had just come out of the army. Irving, the husband, began by asking what on earth I thought I was doing there. Here he had a 3-year-old from this marriage, a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old from the previous marriage, and what did he possibly need another 22-year-old kid for? What Irving said he needed was a nanny and a housekeeper. Just then, his wife Patty cut him off and said, "Wow, you have an accent. Where are you from?" I said, "Ma'am, I'm from London." She said, "Irv, we love London." Irv did not crack a smile. He was just annoyed. So he started drilling me to get rid of me. He said, "This job isn't just about chasing a 3-year-old around a Beverly Hills estate. You need to do some cleaning. Can you clean, Mark?" I said, "Sir, I just left 4 years in the British Army. They came around with a white glove to inspect our lockers every day. No one ever found a speck of dust on my locker." Paddy smiled and Irv got even more annoyed. Then he asked me, "Okay, can you do laundry?" I said, "Sir, laundry? You have to do all our own washing and ironing." I could iron a shirt with a crease so sharp you could shave with it. Paddy was loving this. But then Irving finally got me. He said, "Mark, can you cook?" I said, "Sir, I'm British. My mum can't even cook." Anyway, I thought I wasn't getting the job, but a few hours later, Paddy called the number I'd left where my friend Nick lived and said, "It was a very tough sell, but you got the job. Can you start tomorrow?" And then I began the next day in America as a domestic help nanny housekeeper at 624 North Beverly Drive, Beverly Hills. But here's what's really amazing. Last year, Roma and I, as a lot of you know, merged our company into MGM, which made me the president of MGM Television. And I was given an office on the top floor of MGM, right next to Gary Barber, the chairman and CEO of MGM. I walked in there and looked at this incredible view over LA, the Hollywood sign, Beverly Hills, and then it dawned on me, the address of this building is 245 North Beverly Drive. I looked out the window up Beverly Drive, and I could actually see the house where I was a nanny at 624 North Beverly Drive. You have to know, this can only happen in America. It's the American dream.
Yeah, there are certain things that could only happen in America. Back when I emigrated from Ireland, I lived in New York City, and the very first job I had there was checking coats in a very fancy Upper West Side restaurant. The meals were lovely, but so expensive, and I never could have afforded to eat there myself. And when I checked a coat, I used to get maybe a quarter a coat, or sometimes $1 on average. And one night, I checked the coat of Regis Philbin. He was the very first celebrity that I ever met. And he gave me a $20 tip, and I thought I died and went to heaven. And just a few years later, I was living in Los Angeles, starring on a TV show called Touched by an Angel. And the show had millions of viewers each week, and it was a big hit on CBS. And soon I was invited to fly back to New York and be a guest on the Regis Philbin show. Checking coats one moment, starring on television the next, only in America. And I remember I told Regis that story, and he laughed and he laughed, and he was just so glad that he hadn't stiffed me. Anyway, for almost 10 years, I had the privilege of playing the angel Monica on television opposite the great Della Reese. And we were undercover angels. Thank you. We were undercover angels who showed up at a crossroads in people's lives, often when they had hit the bottom. And in their brokenness, they had reached out to God for help. And every week, I got to deliver a message of God's love on national television to millions of people. And as a believer myself, this was such an honor to share with the audience that there is a God, that He loves us, and that He wants to be part of our lives. And before we filmed these angel revelation scenes each week, we would pray a very simple prayer. Less of me, God, more of you. Less of me, more of you. And we prayed because we hoped we would be used to touch people's hearts and to open their lives to God. And thankfully, that happened thousands of times. Both Mark and I have been so blessed with our careers here in the United States, and we are both so fortunate and incredibly grateful.
Yes, we are really fortunate, and we're very grateful. But our faith has, in fact, led us to almost entirely build our TV careers and film careers on family-friendly franchises. I mean, shows like, as was mentioned. Like The Voice, Apprentice, Shark Tank, Survivor. You know, often, every week, 4 nights out of 7, we have the #1 show in America. It's a lot of leverage, which is what matters in Hollywood. We took that leverage and we told Hollywood we wanted to make a brand new series called The Bible. Yes, The Bible on primetime American TV. Of course, our friends told us we're going to destroy our great careers because mixing entertainment and religion was going to make people really angry. But worst of all, they said we were idiots because nobody is going to watch the Bible on primetime TV. They know the story and they can get that in church. Well, as the Americans in this room know, the Bible became the most talked about television show in America, the #1 series a year, and 100 million of you watching. And here's what's really great. So the Bible also was shown in Canada but they showed it up against the first game from the National Hockey League. But head to head, the Bible beat hockey. I guess we do know now up in Canada, we can officially say that hockey is not God.
At that time, the Bible was also up against a show called The Walking Dead, and we won. And my favorite headline ran on CNN, "God beats zombies." But far more important than the ratings were the stories of families sitting together in their living rooms watching the Bible. The stories of how God's love for us unfolded through the ages, moved them and engaged them. Because faith was and is alive and well in America. And the series helped to ignite a much larger conversation about God and faith in this country. And we were also humbled that people were inspired to see us, a Hollywood couple of producers, daring to speak out about our love of Jesus, daring to talk about our faith in God and our sincere belief in the power of prayer. I can honestly say that I have never made a decision in my life, big or small, that I didn't pray about first. The Bible series began with a prayer that started as a whisper in our hearts. Our dear friend Rick Warren had said to us once, "The most dangerous prayer you can pray is, 'Lord, use me,' because then you have to be ready that he might just do so." All we did was ask him to use us.
And use us he did, trust me. Yeah, it was a TV show, but we're also still telling the story of the most sacred book of all time, the Bible. And we knew we had to get it right. There's a really important, huge responsibility on our shoulders. So first thing we did was sign up 40 scholars and advisors. By the way, many of you are in this room right now. You know who you are, and you backed us from the very beginning and stood shoulder to shoulder with us, and we thank you so much, all of you in this room who backed us. You know, it was difficult to bridge all the theological gaps between the denominations, but we prayed our way through the process and managed to create a series that brought people together and glorified God. I think it's fair to say we have become Hollywood's noisiest Christians. You know, at least 90 million Americans attend church each Sunday in this country. Millions more find inspiration and hope in the person, the story, and the teachings of Jesus Christ. The Christian community is a mainstream community. They watch the NFL, they watch The Voice, they buy tickets to Star Wars and go to Beyonce concerts. It's a community that loves Jesus, loves their country. It's a very cool community made up of millions of young believers, many who have tattoos, earrings, they ride skateboards, they surf, they tweet, they're entrepreneurs, and are a vibrant part of the new American economy. It's a very broad audience indeed. And it's a community that we are really proud to be a part of, and a community that has covered us in prayer, as to our own surprise, we almost became the international spokespeople for the Bible.
Yeah, the making of the Bible series was covered in prayer every step of the way. I can still remember sitting in the Moroccan desert under the shade of a rock and reading scripture with actors, or praying together with them as they prepared for a scene. When we were getting ready to shoot the Crucifixion Scene, I sent out an email requesting that prayers would be sent ahead of us to clear the way. There were emotional and spiritual challenges of filming such a scene, as well as the physical challenge because we had to hang an actor on a cross. And that day the winds were very high and the sun was scorching, and we prayed for safety and that God would use the series to open hearts to him And we had a man on the set whose job it was to wrangle snakes and scorpions from each of the locations. And normally he found about 1 or 2 snakes a day. But on the morning of the crucifixion, he removed 48 snakes from around the hillside of Golgotha. And we believe that was the power of prayer at work, and the symbolism of the snake wasn't lost on any of us. And we also prayed as we cast the series. We were only a few months away from beginning filming, and we still hadn't cast the most important role of Jesus. And so I sent out an email to all my contacts with the header, "Looking for Jesus." And we asked in prayer that the right actor would show up. And through a series of remarkable coincidences, we came across Portuguese actor Diogo Morgado. And as he walked up our garden path to meet us for the first time, I turned to Mark and I said, "There he is. There's our Jesus." And he was an answer to a prayer. And his touching and affecting performance as Jesus helped to inspire millions of people around the world.
Yes. Yes. Yes, that role of Jesus was so important, and it was last-minute casting, and it was the answer to a prayer. And the incredible Hispanic actor, Diogo Morgado, beautifully portrayed, as you saw on the screen, Jesus in the Bible series, and everyone in the whole country was talking about this Hispanic actor. And it reminds me of a great story. There were a couple of old men who were Christians. They lived next door to each other. One was an old black man, one was an old white man. They loved each other and did everything together. In fact, they only ever had one disagreement. The old black man was sure Jesus was black, and the old white man was just as sure that Jesus was a white man. Neither could ever convince the other. One day, these great friends died together in a car accident. On their way up to heaven, the old black man said, "Buddy, you're about to find out I was right all along. Jesus is a black man." And the old white man said, "I'm sorry you're going to have to find out this way, because when we meet him, you're going to see that Jesus is in fact a white man." They got there in great anticipation, and Jesus walked out to meet them, and he smiled at them and said, "Buenos dias."
Well, you know, I suppose when you think about it, Jesus could have been Irish. He lived at home until he was 30. He never got married, and his mother thought he was God. You know, as a husband and wife producer team, not only do we get to do what we love to do, but we get to do it together, and we have fun. You can tell we have fun. But we also know that being in media comes with responsibility. For to those whom much is given, much is expected. And we are so pleased that our step of faith has reinvigorated faith and family programming in this country, and has hopefully inspired a whole new generation of artists to invest their talent in content that inspires and unifies. This is why we named the company that produced the Bible Lightworkers Media, because we have always believed that it is far more effective to light a candle than to curse the darkness. Let me say that again. We believe it is far more effective to light a candle than to curse the darkness. And that's what we try to do, to light as many candles as we can. We just keep lighting candles in this often very dark, hostile, and hurting world.
You know, it's very easy to divide people, and it's very difficult to bring people together. Did you know that what we learned making the Bible, that just among Christians alone, there are over 30,000 denominations I mean, think about that. It's crazy, right? And many have argued about their views of Jesus for thousands of years. So for us, working across the Protestant and Catholic community, working very detailed way with the Jewish community, it was very, very challenging to make everybody happy as we told the story of the Bible. But we worked very, very hard, and as many people here advised us so closely, and we learned to become bridge builders. And bridge building became our mission.
Yeah, building bridges has become so much of our mission. And I know the power of a bridge from my own life's journey, growing up in war-torn Northern Ireland. But today, if you go to Derry, you'll find something new there. Peace has been restored there, and there's now a walking bridge built across the River Foyle, and it's aptly called the Peace Bridge, and it stands in defiance of all that once divided us, our very own bridge over troubled water. Protestant and Catholic children now play together, but more than that, the old hurts are healing. The leaders in Northern Ireland finally sat down and talked to each other and listened to each other and started to work things out together. We are at a time in the world's history where there is so much pain and fear and division everywhere. And these divisions show up in race and in religion and in politics. The dividing lines are easy to find. The bridges to peace are harder to build. May we all find our dividing lines and work until we've built our own bridges of peace across them. On this day of the National Prayer Breakfast, we pray that with God's help, our world can heal some of the hurts that wound us and the confusion that divides us. But it begins with us. And perhaps a good place to start is to simply see the image of God in the eyes of everyone you meet. As Jesus said, "By this everyone will know that you follow me, that you love one another. For in this spirit is the power of true faith, that we learn to love each other." We know that television and film can be powerful ways of bringing inspiration and hope through emotional stories that open your heart. As my dear friend, the late Maya Angelou said, "People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel." Thank you so much.